Welcome to Modern Musings, conversations with the maiden, mother, and crone. Looking at ourselves and the world through the lens of the 21st century. Hello, and welcome back. I'm your hostess, Kristen, and I'm with my co-hosts, Amber and Cindy.
Hello.
Hello.
If this is your first time joining us, we're glad to have you here, and if you're returning, then welcome back. Today, we are talking about goals reset. So, like last week, I was talking about this time of year. You know, July is approaching fast. Man, this year is going by really fast, too.
Too fast.
So we're at the halfway point in the year, which is crazy. It feels like it was just Christmas. But this is the time of year that I like to go, yay, okay, we're halfway. Everything from here is on the second half of the strip or whatever, the track.
Downhill.
Right, or downhill.
Downhill skiing, yeah.
Right? To the end of your goal, right? So if you are like me, you may set your goals for January. A lot of people do January 1st, right? New goals, new year, right? New me. And I give myself the whole year to work on my goals. Now, I know, some goals don't always get achieved at the end of the year. Last year, I had quite a few that I, slid into home, right at the end of the year. I was really glad, that I successfully, landed some of my goals. I completed 5 projects. That was one of my goals. I read more than 50 books. I was so proud of myself. I actually exceeded that one by a couple of books. I didn't meet my health goal, but I made progress. So I accept that. That's cool. Mm-hmm. I was working towards it. So that's all that matters. But this part of the year is where I like to, analyze, make adjustments, act, and then analyze again. To help you ensure that you meet your goal. I mean, I actually have some goals that I haven't even touched on yet. Because I like to have a goal in each area focus of my life. And so there's a couple I haven't touched on quite as much as others, just because of the season, or the ones that are more important. I kind of have to start on those first and those kind of things. So, and some of them are more important for me as a person to develop, and others are more of a fun goal. So I have to weigh what's important, and is that really something I need to worry about? Sometimes this time of year is the time where you go is this goal even important to me? Because a lot of things can change. And so, just wanted to kind of talk about what I do and what you guys do, as far as goals reset.
Okay. Well, before we got the actual idea for goals reset from doing the Cultivate What Matters goal setting system that we have done the last couple of years. And we talked about that a lot on the podcast. I was not so successful last year in completing my goals, and if I had last year's goals in front of me, I would kind of tell you where.
But you don't even remember what they are.
Well, I know that some of them are still ongoing because I was hoping I would be successful in them by the end of the year, and I could change them to something else. But in a lot of ways, I was so unsuccessful that it had to become a goal again this year. Sometimes in a different way, but, coming to it from a different direction or whatever, but really the same end result. This year, with Cultivate What Matters, we had 8 goals in specific areas of our lives. And sometimes I had multiple goals in one area.
Right.
The system I'm using right now is something Kristen and I have kind of been chewing the fat on. Maybe is a idea. Developing, yes. I actually broke my goals down into further categories because I found that the Cultivate What Matters didn't really encompass all of the areas of my life that were important to me. And so I broke it down a little further, and I actually have 12 areas. Now, when I say 12 areas, I'm not saying that I have 12. I do have 12 goals, but they're not 12 things I'm actively working on right now, because I don't think you can actively focus on that many 12 projects at the same time. And so sometimes my goal is just to maintain the status quo, or have a slight improvement, or one of my goals is to have fun activities with my family. I mean, that's the simplest way to put it. That was something that we actually implemented 2 years ago, I think it was. We maintained it last year. It wasn't actually one of my goals for the year, but it was one of my goals, even though the Cultivate What Matters didn't have space for me to make that one of my goals for the year. And so this year it is one of my 12 goals, but it's not something I am actively goal planning, goal achieving. Well, I am goal achieving. It's not something I'm having to really work hard at, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
You're not setting dedicated time aside to focus on those.
Because Kristen and I had sat down before the end of the year and had planned the system to work it. And we already have the system in place that we can implement to achieve that goal. I know that's kind of a weird way of saying it. So basically, when we get together on Sundays, we look forward towards whatever fun family activities we have coming up. And the activities are already on the calendar. So
we decided, back in like December or October of last year, what family activities we wanted to do.
So they're already there. They're already on the calendar. So I'm not having to actively work at that goal, except that once a week we kind of review what's coming up and make sure that we have whatever we need to take care of. So it really is just a kind of a more than treading water, floating. We're floating on the water with that one. I'm just laying back on the lake and enjoying the work I've already done.
What you already created.
So even though it is a goal, that goal doesn't need any work right now. At the end of the year, it will need work again when Kristen and I sit down and decide what family activities we're going to do for next year. But that might be like a few hours one weekend, and it's a big goal for me. It's a huge goal for me.
Yeah.
And it's a huge accomplishment to me to have that done, but it doesn't require a lot of work or tending or whatever. So
it's kind of like if you had the goal to lose enough weight to hit that healthy weight goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe you hit that goal. You know that the next year, obviously, you don't need to have a goal of losing weight. Your goal is to maintain.
So we already had the goal of developing that system. Now we have just the maintenance of it. And a lot of my goals are that way, or they are very narrow focused goals. Like one of my goals is cruise trainings, and I want to complete 5 cruise training updates this year, 5 different cruise lines, and update that training or whatever. And, which, it's a lot of hours of study, but it's not something I work on every day. It's something that I do here, I do there. And, I may not do it for a long time, and then all of a sudden I'll do a big crunch and get something done, so.
Right. Well, it's like you have a career goal and you have a goal with your spouse. You don't work on your goal with your spouse at your job.
Right.
And vice versa.
Right. And so and I'm not working on all of my goals at the same time. They're all there. They're all goals. But some of my goals are specific, it's a short-term goal. I need to do the planning for the fun family activities, and then I'm done with that goal. And some of them are long-term, like to lose weight. That is a long-term goal of mine that is ongoing and will probably last a long time. So, and I forget what your question was, but that's how I'm working right now.
Right. Well, I don't even remember. I mean,
sorry.
Really, what just I don't think we've actually talked about what our goals were this year. We've talked about.
Well, I think you talked about how I was proceeding in those goals. I think.
How are you doing in your goals? Yeah.
Well, and so my answer is I'm not really working on a lot of them, because I've had things come up, things that I thought had been resolved before, and then I get that work. Oh, and that was the other thing, was that last year there were goals that didn't get taken care of at all, or I didn't get as far in them as I wanted to, and so they became new goals again. And I'm still struggling with them, but maybe making a little progress, I guess. So, in answer to your question, I'm fair to middling. Yeah. So,
well, this year is interesting because we are kind of working on our own, new way to
and that
work
was
on
one
our
of
goals.
my goals, and it is progressing,
right.
I think, very well.
So I feel like, yes, in the sense, one of my goals is goal setting, I guess you could say.
Right.
So it's kind of hindering me from doing the other goals because it takes precedence right now. It needs a little bit more attention. I'm working on fine tuning of my process. And it's kind of like whenever you start using a new schedule, like a new day planner.
There's a learning curve
change,
to it.
The type of day planner that you use. It's going to take you a little bit longer to plan your day. So you're going to take some of the time out of actually doing the other things to do the planning part. So that's kind of this year, a lot of my action time towards my projects was kind of dedicated towards planning, planning, and
developing the system.
Does this method work, and stuff like that. So I haven't really got to just crunch some of them out, but a lot of my goals were kind of fluid goals. They weren't necessarily do this project, create and execute, blah.
Right.
So I think I'm a little bit more free in the terms of did I achieve this goal?
How do you
one of my
goals
is create an organized yet expressive home by decluttering and reassessing the decor and placement of our personal belongings. I know that's kind of wordy, but that was my goal. And it still is. And although I actually didn't sit down and write down all of the steps that I wanted to take on that goal. It's funny because I just wrote that on a piece of paper that was my goal, and then life happened and I didn't get around to messing with the
steps involved in
okay, what are the actual things that I'm going to do? Cuz my idea was cuz we actually don't have a couch. We have recliners and other chairs. And our 12-year-old needs a place to sit too. So one of my goals was I'd like to get a couch, but I don't want to just go buy a couch. I want to pick out, something for us. So I need to research the couch or save the money for the couch, rearrange the furniture so it fits because we have a really weird shaped living room. And so I was thinking that I was going to sit down and write down all those steps, and I just haven't got a chance to do them. But in the meantime, I wasn't physically able to sit down and do the writing, but I was also physically able to go and declutter, which was more
spontaneous. It was
very spontaneous.
Yes.
And I think it's because I actually wrote it down on a piece of paper that I made it happen, because somewhere it got, I manifested myself,
because
I
you said
myself.
in your goal, to declutter specifically.
And that's actually the first part is creating an organized and expressive home by decluttering. So I can't really rearrange my furniture or organize it until I declutter.
Right.
And so I started thinking about that because I was kind of scolding myself. I'm like, why am I doing the action items of the goal before I plan them? Because I've been so meticulous about actually like write down your goal, break it down into mini steps, and then break it into smaller steps, and then use the tending list to check off your progress, and it was very like, I was getting so stuck.
That was in the Cultivate What Matters system, yes.
And I was getting so stuck in just the day-by-day tending that's all I was doing was just trying to like...
tread water.
Right. And I wasn't actually like... making progress.
Working on your progress towards your goal.
Right.
Yeah.
I was believing that small progress is progress, but sometimes you got to just stop planning and do.
That's true.
And, sometimes I will waste a whole Sunday on my day planner when I could have like actually just done the stuff that needed to be done. Like stop going and writing the same thing on my to-do list and just do it.
Just go do it because it takes less time sometimes to do it
than
it does.
And I have made so much progress in the decluttering, but I could have also used that same time and sat and wrote down all of the steps, but I'm actually further ahead now than I would have been. So I'm finding some little interesting things about that. I think sometimes it's okay to action before planning, because I think that action before planning, that little action inspires you. It's kind of like that making your bed in the morning thing.
Yes.
Right? I'm not committing to cleaning the whole house. I'm just making my bed, and that's what gets the steam going and gets the inspiration going. And now I actually have some ideas of what I want to put down on that list to get me started.
Right.
And so I'm thinking like, okay, when I look at our process for this goal setting, like if we are spending a lot of time in the planning of the goal, then does the goal ever actually are we ever going to get started?
Is what happened. That's what happened with me last year, because I had, some of my goals were, one of my goals was to find a new residential center for my mother to live in, because she's in memory care, and I had to do the research, and I made all these lists. I need to research. I need to call this. I need to do that. And I never got to the actual process of doing it. Same thing with my bookkeeping and taxes. That was one of my big goals last year, was to get my bookkeeping and taxes all got kind of behind when I was taking care of my mother, because she came to live with me right before COVID started. And so then we had her, and she has dementia, living in the house, and trying to take care of her, and also having the distraction of her and her dog in my house while I was trying to work. So that, made it really hard, and I got really behind. And then trying to catch back up later, I kept making all these lists. I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to do this. And I spent so much time checking off those tending lists or whatever that I actually wasn't getting the actual work done. I really wasn't. And, I too have not, I'm sitting here looking at my planner right now, and I don't have a single daily goal written on it as a checklist of things to do every day, because even though I did kind of mentally, and I did it in writing in my goal setting process, I came up with a ideal day, as a system of what I wanted to do every day and the order I wanted to do it. I wrote it out, but I didn't actually make it into a checklist. So I don't spend time checking it off the list. Did I do this? Did I do that? Did I do this? Did I do that? I intend to do those things. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but I'm not beating myself up over it because I forgot to go do my meditation this morning, or, I didn't, I drank my coffee before I did my tarot card or whatever. I'm not hung up on that. And sometimes I don't get to some of those rituals until later in the day or whatever. But I have made progress on some of my goals. Like for instance, the goal setting part of it, obviously. And some of the things that, like, one of the goals was to do fun activities with my friends and my family. Obviously, I have done those. So
Yeah. And those are good maintains. Amber has this look like, I don't do goals.
yeah, I don't have
She's over there
goals.
like,
I don't like goal setting systems. I want to fly by the seat of my pants.
I have goals.
You do have goals. I know you
know.
do.
Yeah.
We were just talking about your goals.
But you don't obsess over like the tending parts.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, I have like 2 major goals, maybe 3. I don't know. I have like obviously plan my wedding, get through all that, and successfully move in with my fiance, because that's a process. And like my overreaching goal, like for my health, is just to lower my cholesterol, eat healthier, don't gain any more weight, hopefully lose weight, but maintain. If anything, drink more water, get more steps in. I mean, that's I'm kind of like floating along this year, trying to like go from one transition into the next.
Do you have a system that helps you track your progress in any of those areas, or?
Yes, I use an app. Well, I have 2 different apps that I use for like tracking what I eat and water. I use MyFitnessPal and Carb Manager.
Okay.
And both of those, and actually Carb Manager, it connects to the health app on my iPhone. So it kind of logs all of my steps and everything like that through my phone. I don't know how accurate that is, because it's not like I'm wearing like it doesn't get all of my
It's not a
steps.
pedometer.
Yeah, I don't always like hold my phone or have my phone in my pocket, because I don't always have pockets. So it doesn't accurately get all of my steps, but I do walk a lot, because I have to walk like 5 blocks to my car and 5 blocks to school, and like all over downtown Dallas some days. So there are days when I get 10,000 steps. There are days when I get 5,000 steps. It's just kind of like all over the place, but I do try to track what I eat using that app. It's a lot easier for me to do that instead of carry a journal around with me, because then. But that's been like
It makes me want to change my goal.
But that's been like
My
one
health
of
goal.
yeah.
I think like you made me think of something. You had like this long laundry list of health things.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, your health goal sounds like mine. It's like, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do that. And I was like, I wonder if I just like put all of those, because I know
Those
I
are
need
steps
to,
to being healthy.
I need to do all of those things, right?
Yeah.
But wonder if I just focused on one of those and actually like achieved one of those, because I wasn't making it so hard on myself to try to juggle. I mean, when you think about it, if you're trying to juggle, you're first learning how to juggle. How many balls do you try to juggle?
1.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you throw it in the air and you catch it in the other hand. Once you master that, then you add other balls, right? Why is it when it comes to health that we make ourselves juggle 10 balls at once for the first time?
Right.
And
I got to get enough sleep. I got to get enough steps. I got to get.
Because if you say, I'm going to set a goal of having an average of 70,000 steps in a week, that gives you permission to have 5,000 on one day and 15,000 on another day and still meet your goal, right? And then you're going to drink more water if you're walking more, right? Because you're going to be thirsty. You're going to sleep more because you're going to be tired.
Right.
You know,
it kind of snowballs down. Like you exercise.
Right.
You make the
And
goal
when you make
to
that
exercise.
Smart goal, you're going to eat healthier because you just exercised, right?
You make the goal to exercise, which is I haven't. It's not a specific goal that I'm exercising. I'm just monitoring my steps.
Right.
You
Which
know,
I
like
do as well. Yeah.
You know, like and I'm monitoring my steps. I'm monitoring my water, and I'm trying to lower my cholesterol. So I'm monitoring what I put in my body on like any given day, and then adjusting it. I'm not weighing myself obsessively.
Yeah.
Like the goal, like in general, really is to lower my cholesterol.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's like the goal.
And you know that all
Of
of
the
those
year.
things help contribute
Help with
because
that, yeah.
actually
Yeah.
having good sleep helps lower your cholesterol, stuff like that.
Yeah.
For your goal, you know, as long as you have like an ideal number you're trying to reach or whatever, because you can get that from going to the doctor and getting
Right.
blood work done.
Mhm.
That is a smart goal, right? Because
Yeah.
Yes.
you can achieve that goal by making those micro steps. And that's kind of like what I was talking about. Like I had a goal,
See,
but
I
I
have
didn't
goals.
sit down and write those things down. Those
Right.
little, like, I'm going to
Right.
take these steps to get to
Right.
that goal. But my health goal, you kind of made me go, maybe I should change my goal because
Well, that's always
I heard my son.
Well, and that's
number-
that's what the
Yeah.
my
reset is
number
about
one
is
goal. Like, that is my
reassessing
number one goal. over
reassessing
anything.
your goals, you know, every quarter or every, 6 months or whatever is a good idea because sometimes your goals change. Or sometimes you realize that the goal that you set is not really the goal. It was just either a step in the goal or it was
too broad,
broad or
unrealistic.
right.
Yeah.
And so you have to reassess.
Well, the reason that it's my number one goal is like y'all are, talking about family activities and doing more things and doing all of this. Without having good health, you can't do all
That
of
is
those
true.
things.
That is true.
So like it starts at the top and snowballs down. Like if I don't maintain my health, get enough sleep, drink enough water,
You know what?
whatever,
That's really interesting that you say
I
that
can't
too.
plan my wedding. I can't do this. I don't have the energy to teach.
Our goals thing, we had like the areas of your life, and Mom and I kind of sat down and thought about like which ones are at the top of the list and which ones are at the bottom, and some of them may be more important for one person
Eisenhower
for the other.
matrix. I put them on the Eisenhower matrix.
Well, but when we were like writing them out in order, we put spirituality at the top.
Yes, when we did that because we started from within
Yes.
No,
and
mine-
and
Our
worked our way
body
outwards. Yeah.
Yeah, so we did spirituality, then mental health, right? Because you can't
Well, yeah, you don't want to
properly
like
if you're suffering from like depression. It's really hard to get motivated to exercise if
Yes.
you're depressed.
that's another like blanket thing with health is that like another one of my health goals this year, I mean, other than all that, is to get back into counseling like that. And I have made the steps to do that. So, and then, reset my doctors because we talked about this during the DOMD episode is that all of my doctors spontaneously left Texas, and so I'm in a new doctor year.
Yeah, yeah. And that's like Kristen was talking about the goals, like having like we started with spirituality, and my spirituality goal is pretty broad. It's basically just to explore my beliefs. And then I said I was, the specific part of it was explore my beliefs through study and journaling, metaphysical studies, and intuitive meditation. So, have I written out specific steps I'm going to take to do that? No. But by setting that goal, I actually have been working towards some of that because I've set my intention and thus opened myself up to receiving things, and things have kind of come my way. So I picked up a book the other day. I was just looking for something to read, and it touches on some spiritual aspects. We went to a wellness fair, and there are spiritual aspects there. I was talking with a friend of mine about reading certain texts, and so without even just in having conversations with people, I actually explored some of those beliefs because I talked to other people about those beliefs and kind of help refine my thoughts. So I actually did some of that. One of my mental health one was to do some shadow work, which we've talked about on the podcast, and in doing some research for some of our podcasts and writing blogs about some of our topics for the week, I've actually done some of my shadow work. So I didn't necessarily set a specific set of tasks to do, but one of my other ones was to have some daily me time because, and I will say all of my goals are tied to my one little word, because that was one of the things that I really wanted to focus on this year, was having my word be a more integral part of my life, and living my life through that word. And so I worked my goals so that they reflected that word. So one of the things was daily me time, because my word for this year is light, and I often feel burdened, overwhelmed, taxed, just, very heavy with concerns of my life. And so having that daily me time, that meditation time, which actually happens to go with my shadow work and exploring my beliefs, a lot of those goals kind of work together. And I didn't actually set specific things I was going to do for my me time. I just kind of gave myself the intention that I would stop work at a certain time of day, and that I would try to work in something pleasant that I wanted to do every day for myself. And I found that I've been doing more of that lately, being more creative at late night or whatever before, in the last couple of hours before bedtime. So even though I haven't really specifically set out goals, just going through the process of this goal setting system has opened my eyes and my heart or whatever to different ways to accomplish those things without having that, checking it off the list. And like I said, I don't have a daily do. I have a space on my planner that says daily dues, and there's 31 days or 30 days for this month, and I haven't written anything on it. Nothing. There is not a single goal on there. So yeah. I just keep looking at it. There are no daily dues. There are only major goals and ongoing projects. And I do have some like weekly and monthly tasks. But I'm not holding myself down to, I have to do this thing every day. Yeah. I have to do this every day.
Yeah. I think that was something last year that I was really struggling with, because I had, several goals going, and several of those goals had something that I could have done every single day. Like in my health goal, there's drink water or drink more water, right? Or meet my 8 glasses, like whatever. I could say, yes, did you do that or not? Yeah. Get 8 hours of sleep, wear my CPAP, because I've been struggling with that for like 2 years. And, being consistent. So many other things.
Getting good sleep, eating right.
For work, there was like something I could do at work every single day that I could do to propel myself at work, but it wasn't like required to do every day, but it's something I could do every day. And so I had that on there, and I ended up just having like 15 things every month that I was like, do this, do this, do this, do this.
And you spent so much time doing those things.
Or I wasn't achieving them. So I was like, well, I guess I'm not moving forward until I do this. And then I would just put them on repeat again and try and make myself do those things again. Like, obviously I drank water because I didn't die. Somewhere I got enough water and I got enough sleep. You know, I still have my job. So, you know, I look at it like on that piece of paper, I look like a complete failure.
Right.
Don't look at it that way.
Well,
but
also,
when you look, that's what you tell yourself.
Paper, it looks like I didn't meet my goal whatsoever. Right. And it looks like I had no drop of water. You know?
I think that's the lesson there is that
so, like,
tracking is helpful, but not if you obsess over it, and
not if much time tracking you're not doing.
If you spend too much time tracking, you're not doing, or if in the tracking you use it as a way to beat yourself up, and we talked about that with the one little word and choosing your word. It's kind of the same idea. If you're picking these really hard words that are going to make you a better person.
It's going to make you change.
And make you change. And then you just use that word to beat yourself up. You know.
You don't change. And you don't change. Same person, you are.
And so I was doing the same thing with my goals. I had that stupid do my bookkeeping daily. You know, like enter stuff every day. Enter stuff into my Quicken.
That's unrealistic because you went on a cruise.
And here's the thing, you know, is that even my counselor was saying, well, what if you do just a little bit every day? What if you do just a little bit every day? So I made it a rule. I'm going to work on it every day. But then if I skipped a day, I beat myself up over it. If I couldn't do it a day, which happens.
You weren't looking at it like, wow, look at how many times I did bookkeeping. Yeah.
Right. And I felt like if I didn't have this much time to devote to it, then there wasn't any point in doing it at all that day. And that's not true either. So, you know, it's like it just became more limiting to put that on there to do it every day than it was to just say to myself, anytime I have some spare time, do that.
Yeah. And
I've actually been getting more of my bookkeeping done lately by just saying, oh, look, I have an hour's worth of time. I could do that. Same thing with my content for the blog. You know, one of my goals, you know, is for Modern Musings to be consistent with creating content. So consistently write a blog every week and edit a podcast every week so that they come out on time and are interesting and useful to our listeners and readers and things like that. And, you know, occasionally we get behind on those and we're like hustling, trying to get them all written. And so that's my goal, is to be consistent, to stay consistent with it. And what I found was that rather than say, I'm going to write my podcast or write my blog on this day and edit the podcast on this day, sometimes life gets in the way and that doesn't happen. So instead, I just look at it as, if I have a little bit of extra time, is that something I can work on right now? And so I've been getting more of those kinds of things done. My schedule is a little more fluid than it would have been before. And I feel much more accomplished with those things when I can do that, because not only am I getting some of my bookkeeping done, I'm getting my content ready on time, and I'm still having that me time to be crafty and creative, or go sit and read my book, or watch a TV show, or do whatever, you know, paint my fingernails or whatever it is that I wanted to do in that couple of hours before bed. So I actually am getting things done, but just in a different way than I was before.
That seems more light. Like
it is.
It's not weighing.
I'm just
heavy
going
on
with
you.
the flow,
Yeah.
and I'm not freaking
That's
out
what I
that
feel
I'm
like
not getting as far.
this year so far. I've been just like going with the flow. I'm still accomplishing a lot of my goals, and that's kind of like what we're doing right now. We're analyzing this time of year.
This is our refresh.
Analyze how far you've come. And once you kind of see where you are on your goal, like if your goal was a meter bar, you know, are you still at, you know, square one, or are you halfway? Do you need to make adjustments? So now that's the question is, or action item is make adjustments. So
Right.
What steps do you need to do differently? Like which ones are still like simmering on the stove and haven't actually like started working,
Right.
or you know, are they still in the fridge?
Do you need
know?
do you need a swift kick in the rear, you know, to
Uh-huh.
get you going, or do you need a little bit of encouragement to keep on top of things, or are you paying attention to one thing and ignoring others, which I am very often
Right.
quite guilty of. I look at what's on fire and I'm working on that as much as I can, and everything else just goes up in flames behind me, you know. So
One of mine that I haven't started was like my learning goal. I wanted to read one nonfiction book this year because I read a lot of fiction, and so I was like, you know what, I need to like actually read. I mean, I do read nonfiction books, but this year I actually wanted to make a goal of like cherry picking a specific book, and I haven't decided what book I want to read yet. So I think I have this fear I'm going to pick the wrong book, and then I'm not going to read the goal, and I'm not going to meet my goal. Or I said that wrong. I'm not going to read the book, and then I'm not going to meet my goal. So it's it's funny because it's just a stupid book. Like, okay, if I start reading it and I don't like it, I can pick another book. But I'm like, but you only get one chance. So
But that's
I
not
have
true,
not.
though.
I know, but that's the weird little thing that my mind is stuck on.
that's
every
a story
time
you tell
every
yourself.
time I look at it's an invisible limitation. It's an invisible wall that I created. So every time I look at this goal, I kind of cringe because I'm like, I don't want to do that one. And, which is funny because I have all these goals and some of them are really big and lofty, and that one is like probably the most simple, straightforward one. That's the least limiting because I didn't say how big or easy or challenging the book was. I know I could go pick like a junior nonfiction book at the library or something, you know,
And just get it
I
over
didn't-
with.
Right. I didn't set like, you know, certain parameters, like it has to be this many pages or about this subject or whatever. So I could pick something really nice and fun and exciting or something really dry. And it's funny because that one has the most limitations on it. Like I'm scared to start that one.
Right.
So I just need to rip the Band-Aid off on that one. So that's kind of like what I'm looking at. Like, what do I need to do to adjust to make that goal happen? Because I haven't even started on that one.
Right. Well, and I have several I have not started on as well. And you know, some of that is because they were at the top of the priority list, but they had to get shuffled down in the pecking order because other things came up. You know, I moved my mom into one place and then I had to move her again, and you know, and that put a kibosh on a lot of things. And so, you know, I did actually get her moved, and but I had to put everything on hold in order to do that. And so then when I picked back up again, I kind of reassessed what my goals were. And like I said, I kind of looked at what was on fire, and I kind of went, you know, I really need to focus on this right now. So let's do this. And, you know, because, well, like a great instance is the tax stuff. So, you know, I was really hoping I would get the taxes done before tax day. Didn't happen because, you know, I had to move mom. But I had to stop what I was doing, stop everything, and go pack her up and move her to a new facility. And so then I started back on the taxes, and one of my other goals was to do some cleaning and decluttering around the house. One of which is my garage, and the other of which is my office / craft room. And I realized that it did me no good to clean the craft room while the office / craft room while the taxes are still in boxes and tubs.
Because they're in the way.
They're in the way. I've got to get those done so they're out of here. And I can't do the garage until I have a place to put some of the things that are in the garage. And some of that is craft supplies that got moved out of this room and out of our spare bedroom when when Ashley moved in, when my mom moved in, and then when Coy moved in. And I never put those things back in that room. I don't want them in that room. I want them to go in my craft room, but they can't go in the craft room until...
Well, the taxes are done.
Yeah.
And I think of work and play. Like, you want to organize your craft room so you can play.
But
You
also
wanna
so I can work.
Right. And you want to organize the garage so you can park your car in there and
Yes.
and stuff. But the taxes are like work. Like, there's no play in that. Like, there's nothing about playing in there. And that is like a surefire deadline. Like, obviously that needs to be done first.
Right.
Sometimes we get like muddled in our goals. And because one of them is more fun, we choose to do like that one first.
Right.
Right. Because if you can organize your craft room, then you can do more crafts.
Which gives me the more me time. But I don't have to have an organized craft room to have the me time.
Me time.
And
the crafts are still going to be here.
Crafts will still be here.
Going to be here.
I can still do that. And even though the room is driving me crazy and the garage is driving me crazy and I want to park my car in the garage and I want to get all that stuff put away, the taxes are the pressing item. So sometimes, you just, like I said, you can't work on all of the goals all of the time. Sometimes you have to put some on the back burner. And that's kind of where I'm at with mine right now. It's not that those goals aren't important to me. It's not that they aren't going to get done. They may still get done this year, but I've got to get the big chunk one done and out of the way. And then once the taxes are done, I can start, sorting out these boxes of things. I will have room in this room to put more of my supplies and maybe to spread things out and declutter and get rid of some things that I'm not using and all that. And then once I've done that, I can go to the garage and start methodically going through that. And then once that is done, then I can tackle these smaller, short-term, specific goals like the cruise trainings or maybe not a specific one, exploring my beliefs, but because I will have all of those other things off my shoulders, these big things that are weighing them down, then I can have the time to, the exploring my beliefs and the shadow work can be part of the daily me time. They can also be part of the fun activities that I do with my friends or my family. They can be part of the quality time that I spend with my husband. A lot of those things are a lot more fluid and a lot easier to deal with, but I've got to get those big ones out of the way first. Like Amber and her wedding. She has that wedding looming. That is her big major goal right now.
Yes, it is. And it's going pretty well. I'm following a timeline of things that I need to get done when I need to get them done, and checking things off my list as far as like I already have most of it planned out, other than a bunch of minor details like the music and photography list, stuff like that. That's like other
The
than
specifics.
my health.
Yeah.
Other than my health, that's like the major goal of the year. and merging two households.
Which is a challenge in and of itself.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's one of those like a lot of, like you were saying, like with the taxes or everything, a lot of things can't get done unless one thing gets done. And like a lot of like my major furniture can't get moved until I pack up the little furniture.
Right.
And it's hard to do that because I work almost every weekend and every day, and I'm tired.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then, maintaining my health, I've got to get sleep at night. So for some of those goals that I have, there's not enough hours in the day.
Yeah, I understand that fully. And I think that's where it becomes important to, again, reassess where you're at, be realistic in what you can and cannot do, and maybe find some different ways to achieve the goal. Think outside the box a little bit. I was thinking, in doing the bookkeeping, here's the way I must do it. I must do it this way. I have
limited yourself.
I did.
By doing it that specific way.
Yeah, and by thinking of some different ways to accomplish the same thing, it helped a lot. So I think that's a big deal. You got to give yourself a little break. You got to look at different ways to accomplish it. And
that's where you find the new inspiration so you can act.
Right. And look at those goals and see if they're actually something you're still wanting to do, because sometimes you change. Sometimes you decide that goal's not that important after all.
Yeah, I was telling you, like, I wanted to change my health goal, because I have my list of goals right here in front of me, and that one I've still, like, as always struggling, because it's like I'm trying to juggle
do everything.
All the
you
things.
Want to do all the
right,
things.
I want to be a master juggler, and I've got machetes and fire torches and grenades, and I'm trying to juggle them all, and it's like, let me just juggle one rubber ball, and manage that first, and, become an expert at that. And you're not even an expert, but just be consistent, right?
Right.
So, I was like, what's something like stupid simple I can do that, is more like a SMART goal, because it's more specific. Because right now I have engage in weekly physical activities and maintain healthy habits and routines, right? Because that little phrase right there encompaces all those things that Amber listed off just a second ago. And it just says weekly physical activities, so it was kind of broad. And I'm just like, I'm not feeling it, right? So I changed it to close my activity ring. And I'm going to tell it how many times. So I have a Apple Watch. So because we were talking about steps, and I was like, oh yeah, I could do steps, but it doesn't actually measure steps, which sucks, by the way.
That's why I like my Fitbit.
I know that's what I like about the Fitbit. So Apple Watch does activity, and then it does. There's 3 rings. So there's a pink one, which is like just movement ring, and then there's like the activity ring where you're being physically active. And that one, you get that when you're actually like walking or running or doing some aerobic exercise, and your watch goes, wow, you've been doing that for a few minutes, and it keeps measuring it until, or you can actually tell it, I'm going to ride a bike, right? So I'm going to tell it to close my rings 4 times a month on the green ring, which is to close it, you have to do 30 minutes, I believe, of activity. So, that's reasonable. That's exercise.
That's a good start.
It's measurable.
It is.
Right? And then I was like, well, what else can I do? I'm over here, like, minimizing and decluttering my goals over here. I'm telling you, like, I'm decluttering, and it's like turning everything.
But again, I don't like getting too specific, because, like, last year, one of my goals was to get 7 hours of sleep a night. And I failed miserably at it over and over and over again. And I had all these steps about how to go to bed earlier and earlier and earlier. But what would happen would be there would be work that I had to do, and I would have to stay up late doing the work, so I couldn't go to bed on time, and then I had to get up the next day, and then I would beat myself up for not getting 7 hours of sleep again. And it, just being in that cycle of trying to tell myself that I should be able to do this and then failing at it over and over and over again. It was unrealistic and I couldn't get it done. Guess what? Now I'm not beating myself up over going to bed at a certain time or getting a certain hours of sleep. I've been getting consistently an average of 7 hours of sleep a night. Sometimes it's 8 or more.
Because you're not thinking too hard about it.
I'm not.
You're not trying to set up all of these expectations or exceptions that you have to meet in order for that to happen.
Right.
Which is like,
I would have to shut down my work by a certain time so that I could do this.
Screens for an hour before bed.
Right.
And then you become
you
like,
all these
I
things.
have to do this and I have to do that. And
yeah.
to make the condition just right.
I was still working. It's like you have, especially if you are self-employed, the work has to be done, whether it's 5 o'clock or not. You still have to keep working until, and I don't do 5 o'clock. I do mostly midnight, or not midnight, noon to 9 p.m. And so if my work runs over that 8-hour day, which that's a 8-hour day with an hour lunch in between, or 30-minute lunch and 2 15-minute breaks. If I go past that 9 o'clock, that happens a lot, because if I'm in the middle of processing one of my clients' vacations, I have to finish their vacation before I can shut everything down. And that doesn't even count the back office stuff that has to be done, the accounting and the bookkeeping and different things like that. So I just quit beating myself up over that, 7 hours of sleep, and I've got to shut it all down by 11 o'clock and be in bed by midnight and sleep until, and get my 7 hours of sleep or whatever. And just said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to try to shut it down early if I can. I'm going to shut down the work if I can find a good stopping place after that 9 o'clock. But if I have to keep working, I'll just keep working.
I had, for hobbies and recreation, this is funny because last year I had, read such and such, it was 50 books and then do 5 projects. So I was like, I want to do those again. So I know, like, now I can read 50 books in a year. It's possible. So I'm not necessarily worried about achieving that again. I just don't want to not read again.
Right.
Because there was a time in my life where I was reading, like, very consistently, and then I just stopped reading. I think I discovered Netflix or something. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
And then I didn't read for a while. So I'm just like, okay, I want to maintain that. It's not really like a goal, but, I have a number in sight. Obviously, I want to try to finish 5 projects. One of the things Amber challenged us last year to make a handmade gift, and my first thing was, I'm going to make a handmade gift for everyone. And then I was like, slow down. So I decided I'm going to make a handmade gift. And it's one of the 5 projects that I'm working on this year. So I'm like kind of limiting myself so I don't go over crazy.
And I kind of took that cue from you too. Yeah. I'm kind of doing that same thing.
Just
I have
on
a very small set of projects, and I'm trying to get them done.
I like it because it gives me permission to not work on the other projects. Like I don't, because I said it's okay and to not work on them, I don't feel guilty that I'm not working on those other projects. And I like that because I packed them up and I put them out in the garage.
My wedding is my project.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and
very much so.
Literally in 2020, that's all I did was.
That's all we did. That's why all these other projects that I was working on didn't get done.
Right.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I had wrote down was because I want to explore like drawing again. It's been a long time since I've like sat down and like drawn a lot, and so I had a goal to draw more And then I had a goal I wanted to like run down, because my word this year is enjoy. And so I wanted to enjoy some of the movies and books that I have on my to-do list, because I keep putting more books on my list, but then I just go find some random book that's like, hey, you want to read this on Amazon Kindle? And then I'm like, yes, I do. And then I'm like, all my other books are like, hey, what about us? So my goal was to knock off some of those books on my list. But then I'm like, what? I'm trying to like not have so many goals. So I'm about to cross off the drawing one, because I can draw whenever I want. I don't need a goal for that.
You don't need a goal for that.
I don't need a goal to read 52 books this year.
Well, that's one of the reasons why my hobbies and recreation is to have daily me time, because I don't need to make time to force myself to scrapbook or quilt or whatever. I just want to do the things I want to do. And so specifically my goal says create and maintain a daily habit of relaxing me time every day after 9 p.m. to do the things I enjoy doing. So it's very broad. Yeah. I could watch TV. I could quilt. I could scrapbook. I can do those things.
Oh, I just crossed off to work on the 5 projects on my matrix.
Right.
Because I created that project matrix and I adhered to it and I believe it. And those projects are out in the garage. I'm not going to go dig them out and try and work on 20
Well, and you can maintain that project matrix without. You can do that for the rest of your life. You've created that system.
Yeah.
So you don't have to make that a goal anymore.
I changed my goal to create one handmade gift. That's it.
Yeah.
And once I'm done with that, I can set another goal. And that's the thing, is this is a yearly goal, but that doesn't mean that I have to extend it through the whole year.
Right. Well, and that's one of the things we talked about in Cultivate What Matters, too, because sometimes you have a short-term goal in one of those categories, and you finish that goal, then you replace it with something else.
Yeah.
Or not.
Yeah.
But you can. Yeah. If you make your goal to finish this one project, then when you're finished with that project, you can decide what your next goal is.
Well, I can see some progress being made here, because it sounded like, Kristen, you had yourself bogged down with goals and you're scratching some goals off your list.
I did.
I feel like with all this talk about goals that like we can sometimes, like you were talking about, overwhelm ourselves with goals.
Yes.
And that's why I keep it really simple. Like if I say I have to read 50 books this year, I'm not going to do it because that means I'm forcing myself to do it. And therefore, reading is one of my fun things that I like to do in my life. And so if I force it, I don't want to do it.
Once I hit that goal, my dream was to always be able to have this year of reading 50 books. I had set that goal. It was like a challenge I saw on Library Thing or something. It was like a online website. And I was like, ooh, I'm going to do that. And I actually set it on like September the 29th. And that's like a reminder on my calendar is 50 book goal. It pops up every year on my calendar. So it's kind of funny. It reminds me of that. But I had always wanted to say, like, I read 50 books because I read 0 books for so many years.
Yeah.
And, or because I have commitment issues with books, I would read like 1 page and then I would quit on it. So I was just reading a lot of first pages. And, once I hit the goal of reading the 50 books, like, I was at that particular peak. I wasn't at the peak, but I was at that particular one. And once I hit it, I kept reading that year because I finished before the year.
Oh, yeah.
And then this year, even though I set a goal, it wasn't actually like a goal. It was just like, okay, maybe I'll try to read 2 more books than last year. So I set it to 52 so that it would just be maintaining what I did last year. I actually have read more this year now that I'm not saying like, oh my God, I need to read books, I'm behind, because last year I was a little behind at the beginning of the year. And I was worried I wasn't going to make it. And so there were times where I was like, I have to read 7 books this month or I'm not going to meet my goal. And in January, I read 11 books.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, and they were like little snacks, as Amber calls them, but they were kind of short. Some of them were only like 200 pages, but there was like 3 of them that were like over 600 pages. So, I mean, I soaked them up. But I also didn't do anything else. Like, I was pretty much just relaxing and reading my books. But I felt like once it wasn't a goal anymore, it was so easy to do.
Well, and maybe that's the part of the key there too, is to not, we're talking about not making too many goals. Don't make it so hard on yourself that you don't want to do it. Make the goals easy. Make them short, make them simple, get through that one step. Maybe instead of having this big goal of cleaning out my garage, maybe the goal is to throw out all the empty boxes in the garage, or take all of the craft supplies to the donation center, and donate them, or something like that. And that's where I get to this thing of, I doing the one thing, even though I have these other goals, they're really just, I'm just maintaining in those. And they're like in the, they're in the Eisenhower matrix right now. And the one thing that is in the urgent and important is my taxes, because that stuff's not going to go away. It has to be done. And it's urgent and it's important, and that's what I'm working on. And I'm really not worrying about the other goals, because I don't feel like I have to work on all those goals all the time. They're there to remind me that those are things I want to have happen. But at the same time, I want to live in the light, because that's my word. And I set up my goals to be in that word, and to reflect that word across the board throughout my life. And if I am worrying about not meeting my goals, I am not being light. So everything has to be easy to do, light, brainless, thought. I don't want to have to think about it too hard. Just do it. And I feel like that's helping me a lot more. I do.
Awesome. Well, I am looking forward to seeing how the rest of the year pans out, and meeting our goals. And obviously, Amber's, you're getting married in December, so yours is like the end of the year goal, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Cool. Well, what are we talking about next week?
Next week is we're talking about less equals more, which is kind of what
we were talking about,
what we've
right
just
now.
been talking about. So it kind of goes with goal setting. It kind of goes with one little word. It goes with a lot of things. So less equals more. What does it mean that less equals more, and how do you accomplish that? So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. Well, we want to thank Red Door Studios and Creative Audio Tech for the music and the equipment. And we also want to thank our listeners. Thank you guys so much for coming back week by week by week and letting us ramble into your earbuds or on your car speaker or wherever you're listening to us. We appreciate you. Definitely drop us a line. We would love to hear your thoughts on the episode, and hope that you care to continue the conversation with us over on MMC Chat or on our blogs.
Yeah.
So looking forward to chatting with you next week, and happy Independence Day to everybody.
Happy Independence Day. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.